Hey there, friends. Welcome to the Taking Your Next Step podcast from Collegians for Christ. Through each episode, we will journey together focusing on knowing what you believe and why you believe it. If you are eager, like I am, to strengthen your faith and take your next step now by joining us in today's episode.
I'm sure if I asked you, do you want to do something great and purposeful with your life? You say, absolutely, yeah. I'm sure you have goals, you have dreams. For many of us, we've had dreams we've never achieved. Many of us have dreams that we're striving for now. I think it's great that we have goals to help us to be a better person, to do a good job, to have something to aim at. When you're in school, you want to make good grades. When you're on the job, you want to do a great job for a possible promotion. And wherever you find yourself, I believe we want to do a good job. And, you know, when you think about your goals, if you were to pause for a minute and begin to write them out, your dreams that maybe you hope to see come to fruition, your bucket list items and all of these things. All of these things are great. They're excellent. But in pursuing our goals and pursuing our dreams, we must not confuse our goals or these goals with the goal of life. And I believe as we come to John 15, Jesus gives us what the goal of life is. So I'm going to just kind of briefly read here in John 15. He talks about he's the vine, the Father is the husbandman. And he begins to talk about three different branches, which we'll look at in great detail next week. But he talks about a withered branch, he talks about an unfruitful branch, and then he talks about a fruitful branch, which is what our passage here today is emphasizing. He says, "And every branch that beareth fruit, he purgeth it, that it may bring forth more fruit." And then he says this, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine. No more can ye, except ye abide in me." So here we're talking about abiding in Jesus Christ. This passage of Scripture is one of my most favorite passages. And as you know, the title to our podcast is Taking Your Next Step. What is the idea there? Is this phrase that Jesus gives, or the invitation that Jesus gives to us to follow him. And as we try to discover what that means and how we can fulfill that on a daily basis, that's kind of the emphasis, if you will, of our podcast. But as we come to this passage, it doesn't say follow me, but I believe it is in essence the same thing. When he's saying abide in me and I in you, he's saying, look, follow me. Abide in me. You see, Jesus is the true vine, God is the gardener, and we are the branches. And as we look at this idea of the abiding life, how do we abide in Jesus? What does it mean to abide in him? What does it mean practically speaking? We want to break that down on today's episode. So first of all, the abiding life, I believe you could put it like this, is a loyal life. He says, abide in me, and I in you. He says, I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit. For watch this, for without me ye can do nothing. What does it mean to abide or remain in Jesus? This word abide is mentioned close to, I think, 8 times in our passage here. And then there's a couple other words that are translated to continue and to remain that are the same root word, Greek word, that abide comes from. So you're looking at about 10 different times in 10 verses that Jesus uses here the word abide. What does it mean? It means to be in the same place all the time. It's where you live. Think about it. It's where you remain. It's where you go back to. What's Jesus saying here? To be united together with him in heart, soul, mind, and will. It's the place that we return to often. Typically, your home is where you abide. And I hope for you, I pray for you that it's a place of peace. It's a place of solitude. It's a place of refuge to where you visit often. And that's the idea. Jesus says, look, I want you to live in me. I want you to come home to me every single day. So abiding with Jesus is being present with him. That's what it means, to be present with him, to acknowledge him, to return to him, to spend time there. He is our refuge. He is where we live. He is where we dwell. And when you think about what it means to abide, it means, I think, to be loyal to him. Everybody has certain values, if you will, that are important. Honesty, loyalty, and we could go down a list of what some of these values are. Loyalty is a big one for me. When you think about loyalty, it's complete allegiance to a person or a cause. You're fully supporting it. You're going to be faithful to it. There's an obedience to it. You show up maybe for what? The good and the bad. Examples of loyalty would be the military. I mean, think about they are giving their allegiance to our country to go into battle for life or death. Athletes would be another example. They train and they do all that hard work too. They're loyal to the team. And when they're not loyal, we see a bad season and we don't see good progress and so forth, gangs, family. But I believe this, that loyalty is required to abide in Jesus. Loyalty is to Jesus is what it means to be a follower of Jesus. Why should you and I abide in Jesus? It's all about being loyal to the one who has been totally loyal to you. It is the least that you and I can do. What did Jesus say? I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. He says, I'm going to be loyal all the way to the end. So the abiding life, I believe, is a loyal life. And it's one that you and I choose. He says, abide in me and I in you. And he goes on to say in verse 6, if a man abide not in me, he's cast forth as a branch. So you and I choose whether we're going to abide. Verse 7, if you abide in me. So here we see these conditional aspects of the abiding life. But it's a loyal life, but secondly, it is a productive life. You see, abiding produces fruit in your life. It's abiding in Jesus that is your productivity app. You know, we have apps on our phones, our computers that are supposed to help us to multitask. And many times I feel like I'm doing more, but actually I realize I can only do one thing at a time. And so sometimes these productivity apps really don't allow me to be that much more productive. But here Jesus is saying, look, if you want to look at me in that aspect, I am going to produce the fruit in your life. I am going to be your productivity app. Verse number 2, he says what? He says, you're going to bring forth more fruits. He says, look, I'm going to purge you. We're going to talk about that. That doesn't feel good, but that pruning. But he wants us to produce fruit. He wants us to produce more fruit. And then verses 5 and 8, he talks about you and I producing much fruit. That's the ultimate success, if you will, in our Christian life. But when we talk about fruit, what is Jesus speaking of here? Are we going to produce apples and oranges? No, he's talking about the fruit of the Spirit, Christian character, if you will. When we abide in Jesus, the fruit of the Spirit is what is love, joy, patience, peace, and he goes on down the list. It's going to be reaching others with the gospel and seeing the gospel have a positive effect in their life. It's going to be you and I growing in holiness, growing in obedience. It's going to be you and I performing good works for the right reason. We're going to be serving and sacrificing to others. That's the fruit that Jesus is talking about. But he goes on to say, answered prayer in verse number 7, if you abide in me and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what you will, and it shall be done unto you. Verse 9, as the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye in my love. So we're going to receive the Father's love. And then verse 11, these things have I spoken unto you, that my joy might what? Remain, same word, abide in you, that your joy might be half full, partially full. No, it says full. So abiding in Jesus produces fruit in our life. And so if we truly want to be successful, and what really matters, then abiding in Jesus is where you want to be. Success could be defined this way. It's simply doing what you were created to do. It's fulfilling the will of God. You are never more successful than when you are doing the will of God. No matter how you and I may look at success, no matter how other people may view it, it is abiding in Jesus Christ that is producing the fruit. It's the way we can be productive, and it is you and I living out our purpose. But as we think about the fruit aspect, it is pruning that produces the fruit in our life. He says, look, I want you to be fruitful, but he says, I'm going to purge you. That word purge means to cleanse from filth or to purify. You know, pruning is one of the most important parts of the whole gardening process. If you're familiar with gardening, shrubs, trees, and so forth, many times you have to cut off so that it can grow better. You have to, for tomatoes, for example, have suckers on them, and you can let them grow, but if you will take the suckers off, it allows more nutrients and life to go to the fruit. It allows it to produce more fruit. And you can see that with shrubs and roses. If you trim them and prune them correctly, they will actually produce more flowers. And it's amazing, but that pruning is what is cutting into the life of the tree or the vine or whatever the case is. You see, it cuts, it hurts to produce new growth. It's that cutting that does that. And Jesus is saying, look, because you're a fruitful branch, I'm going to purge you. I'm going to prune you that you may bring forth more fruit. That pruning is going to do what? It's going to strengthen our character. It's going to strengthen our faith. It's going to remove the unfruitful things in our life to make room for things that will produce fruit. What ways does God prune our lives? Well, He allows trials in our life. Many times we don't understand. We can't explain them. We do not want them. But I can say this. The greatest growth has occurred in my life through the hardest trials. I would never invite them in. I don't want them to come back. But I can honestly say, me and my wife, my family, the hardest trials have produced the most growth. So God will allow those trials. That's biblical. We see it mentioned in Scripture. He'll use His Word to convict us, to cleanse us. He'll use preaching, podcast. He'll use messages. He'll use Bible study, your devotional time. He'll use other people. All these things He will use to prune us, not to hurt us or to harm us. His intention is to remove that which is hindering and allow that which is producing the fruit to produce more fruit and much fruit. But it comes as you and I are abiding, or we are connected to the vine. Notice He says, without me you can do nothing. He says, I am the true vine. I am the source of life. I am the source that you need to be tapped into. When you abide in me, you are connected to the vine, and I will do my work through you. So the abiding life is a productive life. But lastly, here in our last few minutes, we see it's a joyful life. You see, it's abiding in Jesus that claims the promises of God. I've already mentioned, if a man abide not in me, if a man abide in me and my words abide in him, you shall ask what you will and it shall be done unto you. If is conditional, we abide in Jesus and His word abides in us, then what? He says you will pray and those prayers will be heard and answered. What is God saying there? He's promising to actively work in our lives. His words live in us. They become a part of who we are. We meditate and we practice what His word teaches, not just hearing, but being a doer of the word. Abiding in Jesus allows you and I to claim the promises of God, but it also brings true joy. I would say joy is what so many people in the world are searching for, and Jesus says you can have it. Happiness is based on conditions, on situations. It's temporary. It comes and goes. But joy undergirds and joy carries through all the circumstances of life. It's that inward peace and contentment that is not affected by outward circumstances. Where does it come from? The true vine. Because He says, look, it's not someone else's joy. It's not a joy I'm going to produce. He says, it's my joy. And joy is a choice, while happiness is based on circumstances. Joy is constant, while happiness is fickle and temporary. Joy can share with other emotions like sadness, anger, grief, and hurt, while happiness cannot. Happiness and anger, happiness and sadness cannot coexist, but joy can. If you want joy, then abide in Jesus Christ. You say, what is abiding in Jesus Christ? It's remaining in Him. It's returning day in and day out, just like you do after you come home from work, to your apartment, your house, your townhome, whatever it is. You come there to abide. There we come to Jesus. We spend time with Him. We focus our eyes on Him. We put our attention on Him. We return to Him time and time and time and time again. We remain in Him. And as we do that, as we're loyal to Him, we will be productive in life. We will be successful in life. We will be completing our created purpose. We'll have our identity. Remember, our identity is found in Jesus. We will have that identity as we are connected, as we're abiding in that vine. And then also, He tells us, you will have a life filled with joy.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. If this podcast has been helpful to you, please share it with a friend or subscribe to stay up to date on the latest episodes. You can connect with Collegians for Christ online for more information and resources at cfccampusministry.com.